There's always a risk associated with remaking a game or movie. Fans' expectations will naturally be higher for a remake of something they already love than they would be for something brand new. And there are very few video games that are more risky to remake than Final Fantasy VII, which is not only the most popular entry in Final Fantasy's 30+ year history, but also widely considered one of the most important video games of all time. Fortunately, with Final Fantasy VII Remake, the risk has well and truly paid off, as Square Enix have delivered a game that not only met, but exceeded my expectations in every way. Remake modernises Final Fantasy VII whilst remaining faithful to the spirit of the original game. Final Fantasy VII Remake is unlike any video game remake before it. Instead of opting to make a one-for-one retelling of the original story, Square Enix have chosen to remake the iconic Final Fantasy VII as multiple games. When we think of an episodic structure for game releases, we tend to imagine small, bite-sized entries, but Final Fantasy VII Remake is quite the opposite. This game takes the Midgar section, which was only a small fraction of the original game, and fleshes it out into its own 40-hour-long standalone game. This allows the story and characters to be far more developed than they were before, while managing to avoid the trap of making the game feel overly padded. One drastic change from the original game that you'll notice immediately in Final Fantasy VII Remake is its combat system. While the original game was turn-based, Remake features real-time battles with hints of the original's turn-based mechanics sprinkled in. Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system is like a wonderful blend of previous Final Fantasy games' battle systems. Take the real-time action from 15, combine it with the ATB system from the original 7, and add the importance of staggering enemies from 13, and you have the amazing battle system found here. When in combat, your basic attacks, dodges, and blocks are all occurring in real time. However, as you attack enemies, you'll fill in the ATB bars found at the bottom of the screen. Once you've filled in an ATB bar, you can bring up a menu to use an ability, spell, or item. Opening this menu also slows time to a crawl. This allows you to think tactically about your next move, which is crucial in the more arduous battles of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Though if you don't want to take advantage of the slowed down time, you can map actions to a quick menu and use them the second your ATB bar is filled. Doing this almost gives the combat a bit more of a Kingdom Hearts-like feeling. The most crucial thing to keep in mind while playing Final Fantasy VII is that you need to be switching between party members constantly. Filling up each member's ATB bar and taking advantage of their unique abilities is the key to succeeding in combat. The boss fights are where Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat hits its highest highs. They require you to think strategically and take advantage of every party member's strengths. They almost always offered the perfect amount of challenge as well, never feeling overly punishing but keeping me on the edge of my seat the whole time, and often ending with me feeling like I only just scraped through by the skin of my teeth. Something I absolutely love in Final Fantasy VII Remake is its use of weapons. Over the course of the game, you get different weapons for your party members, with each weapon having its own unique ability. Through using the weapon's ability in combat, you can master the ability, which means you'll then be able to use it with any weapon. Constantly adding new weapon abilities into your repertoire is another way Final Fantasy VII Remake keeps its combat fresh and engaging the whole way through. Each weapon also has its own skill tree for you to put points into. This means that every weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses, which gives you incentive to regularly switch weapons to be better equipped for different encounters. Summons have played a role in the battles of many Final Fantasy games, including the original Final Fantasy VII, so of course they make their return in Final Fantasy VII Remake. During some of the bigger battles, you'll manage to fill in your summon bar. Once it's full, you can use your ATB charges to bring in a summon to help you in your fight. Summons all have their own unique abilities that can be used to target enemy weaknesses. Like many Final Fantasy games before it, Final Fantasy VII Remake summons are awe-inspiring, and can turn the tide of a battle if used smartly. Even 40 hours in, seeing a summon brought forth never grows old. The Materia System was one of the most important elements of the original Final Fantasy VII, and it remains just as important in the remake. Materia are colourful orbs that can be slotted into a party member's equipment to grant them access to new abilities, spells, and summons. Through using a materia, it'll become more powerful, which can grant you further perks or stronger versions of spells. Different materia are useful for different situations, so it behooves you to regularly swap different materia in and out. Though there are definitely a handful of materia that are worth keeping equipped at all times, like the Assess materia, which will tell you an enemy's weaknesses and strengths, as well as give you some interesting lore tidbits on them. If you've seen the trailers for Final Fantasy VII Remake, you've no doubt gotten a glimpse at the exhilarating motorcycle combat. Whilst this is only featured in a very small amount of the game, I wanted to give it props for just how much fun it is. The motorcycle segments offer some truly thrilling set pieces. I found myself feeling constantly engaged with the gameplay of Final Fantasy VII Remake, not only when I was in combat, but also when I was simply exploring the densely detailed environments. The only time I found myself slightly frustrated was during a slightly tedious section which involved solving environmental puzzles with giant robotic arms, though this section didn't last long enough to detract from the overall fun I had with the game. Aside from the main story, there are also 26 side missions in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I would highly recommend doing all of them. They offer encounters with interesting characters as well as some pretty worthwhile rewards. One of the things that made players fall in love with Final Fantasy VII the first time around was its cast of characters, and in this remake they're better than ever. Characters like Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith and Sephiroth have been given the respect and care you'd hope to see. They've been updated to feel more modern, but haven't lost any of the charm they always had. Square Enix have also made the cast of Final Fantasy VII even more compelling in this remake by taking Jessie, Biggs and Wedge, who were all minor side characters in the original game, and fleshing them out into fully fledged cast members who I became way more invested in than I'd ever expected. Jessie in particular quickly became one of my favourite characters, and she easily has one of the most compelling story arcs in the whole game. These characters are all elevated even higher thanks to the excellent voice acting. 7 Remake's writing is also noticeably better than the original Final Fantasy VII's. While there are moments that come off as cheesy, they usually feel more endearing than cringeworthy. It's during the big emotional beats of the game that the writing really shines though, and the game delivers some truly poignant and memorable moments. As you've probably noticed by now, Final Fantasy VII Remake is visually stunning, with impressive character models and gorgeous environments. Getting to see some of Final Fantasy VII's most iconic locations remade in such great detail feels truly special. While the game is usually breathtaking, there are strangely a couple of areas where I ran into some pretty bad textures, which stood out even more than usual due to the fact that they didn't match the usually beautiful environments found throughout the rest of the game. Even if you never played the original game, there's a strong chance that you've heard the iconic score, which was one of the best parts of Final Fantasy VII. In Remake, the score has been treated with as much love and care as every other aspect, and the masterful music of the original has been recreated to sound better than ever. Final Fantasy VII Remake also offers a lot of replay value, with a hard mode that is unlocked after you finish the game. The hard mode takes away your ability to use items, prevents you from regaining MP when you rest, and offers substantially tougher fights. But the increased challenge isn't the only reason to give hard mode a shot. In hard mode, you'll also find some new content not accessible in your initial playthrough. I'd be remiss to not briefly touch on my thoughts on the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and without spoiling anything, I'll just say I truly loved it. While the ending of the game will no doubt be polarising among fans, it's left me more excited than ever to see how this remake unfolds. Final Fantasy VII Remake is an incredibly special game, taking one of the most influential and beloved games of all time and reimagining it in the best ways possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned to the channel for more reviews, including my upcoming review for Resident Evil 3.